Well, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Sorry, it took me a second to get things going. I'm a touch behind today, but that's all right. That's all right. That's all right. There we go. All right. So, gotta get the chat live. And it's telling me to remember to guard your privacy and abide by community guidelines. So let's remember to do that. Shall we? So, me and Creaky Chair are back to hang with you for another Wednesday. So, today I thought we would talk a little bit about, oh gosh, I feel like I've look a little rough today. It's been a tough um, couple of days. We had to put a family pet down. So, tough one for me, for the kids. Not a lot of sleep and a lot of undry eyes in the last 24, 48 hours. So that just means you love them. So today I thought that we would talk, I would go through a few construction horror stories and see if we can do, not that we can do anything about them retroactively, but we might be able to see where things maybe went wrong. So what I'm gonna do is read them out to you, and I will see where things went wrong. Now these, I I don't love doing these, of course, but because they're all so negative and they sometimes paint this industry in a bit of a bad light. But I do still think it's important to do and to see where we maybe could help or what went wrong, so that if you are watching and you're about to go through a project, that rest assured they don't all go like this, but that you don't maybe make the same mistakes as some of the people that have that are going through this, but also so that you don't so that you can, I'm not saying these people made mistakes necessarily, but so that you can maybe hopefully avoid these pitfalls. So I'm going to read one, the first one here. My parents, these are off of Reddit, and all I did is just look home improvement or contractor horror stories. And I mean, I've got lots of my own that people have told me, but these are straight from the internet. My parents were ready to do a full reno/addition on our house. My dad worked for a lumberyard and was formerly a contractor, so he knew plenty of contractors. Hired a guy he knew well, helped design the plans, arranged payment for each leg of the project. So starts off pretty well. First things first, Dad worked for a lumberyard and was formerly a contractor, so he knew plenty of contractors. That's good. We're starting in the right direction right away. Just because usually if people know you, they are less likely to screw you. And it sounds like he helped design the plans, hired a guy he knew well, which is all good. I don't see any issues here right away. Arranged payment for each leg of the project. Sounds like we're starting off pretty well. We've got a payment schedule arranged, which is always good. Generally speaking, we don't want to just pay whenever the contractor says they need money, because then we oftentimes have no idea what's going on. We don't know how the project is going. We don't know what is happening. And the contractor says he needs money. We don't know where the costs are relative to what we've spent. So having a payment schedule is great. So we're starting off really well. About midway through the project, so that means we're through a lot of the guts of the project, especially after putting an entire second floor on the house, but before electrical, plumbing, insulation, or sheetrock or sheetrock could be put in. My parents noticed the invoices are way off from where they should be. Okay, so I mean, we're into framing. It doesn't say if they're waterproofed. It doesn't say if they're what they're looking at. It just says that before plumbing, electrical, HVAC, insulation, or drywall. So we're at framing stage still. My parents noticed the invoices are way off from where they should be. Interestingly enough, that's good. First of all, that the parents notice that something's wrong, and it's better now, as in the middle of the project, than the end of the project. And how you can tell if something is wrong is especially if you think about what's going on at that stage, that particular stage of the project, is they're they are at framing stage. So when you're in framing stage, there's actually not a lot of unique material that is to be purchased. You're basically buying wood, and that's it. Nails, wood, maybe they have waterproof, maybe the roof is on. It sounds like probably the windows were in, because they were looking at putting, electrical, insulation, drywall, and so on, plumbing. So likely the house is at lockup, which is the term that we use for the roof is on and the windows are in. The building is more or less secure. So at this stage, they should be only getting invoices for pretty much for wood and various other materials. The invoices shouldn't be anything too different from that. So the parents notice the invoices are way off from where they should be. They get an itemized list of the supplies ordered. That's a good thing. That's a really good thing. Sometimes what people do is, or what builders will do, is they'll say, I'll buy all the materials and you just pay me back. And the problem with that is that you don't know what's being ordered. And so it sounds like this guy clearly worked at a lumberyard, so he knew, so he likely got a deal. So he, as far as I can tell, the client has done everything right, or correctly, I should say. Right implies a moral tone, and that's good. So what he's done, it sounds like what the contractor, or sorry, what the client has done is that they've set up a contractor's account, which is good, at their lumberyard, which is good. So the client pays the invoices directly, which is good. All of that is good, because what it doesn't allow the contractor to do, well, they try to do in this case, is buy extra material for a different job, or spend way more money, or buy things that they're just basically like stockpiling. Like they could buy tools. If you don't see, if the client doesn't see the invoices that are coming in, aka what the items that the contractor are buying, then they have no idea. They can, I mean, I remember one time we had a client that saw all of our invoices. That's how we used to do it. And they noticed when one of our workers went in and bought chocolate bars, bought a whole box of chocolate bars. And the client called us up in the office and was like, hey, are you guys buying chocolate bars on our account? And so we had to do a little bit of digging and, figured out that apparently the client's, the wife had said, go in and get some chocolate bars or something. Get yourself a treat next time you go in. And the husband didn't know, or something like that. So it was all good. But by all accounts, everything is going fine. The client is doing everything, in my mind, correctly. As in they've got transparency in the materials. They've set up a payment schedule. And they started noticing that invoices are off, that there's materials on there that should not be ordered for that stage of the project. So they get an itemized list of supplies ordered. There's a ton of stuff not needed for the project, and that, my dad knew, wasn't even remotely being used in our house. He brings this up to the builder, and the guy dismisses him, telling him if his guys ordered it, it must be getting used. My dad argues with him because dad works at a lumber yard, so dad knows what's going on, knows what materials look like. Sometimes lumber and just various building materials have a shortened or abbreviated codes on invoices on like not just the SKU but the name of the material can get kind of confusing, and so it's not always obvious. But it sounds like dad's pretty hip here, and he clearly works in a lumber yard, so he's used to seeing these items come up on an invoice sheet. So dad argues with him about it. The dude pulls his team off our project, and my parents ended up having to go to court over it. Turns out the guy's crew would moonlight independently and would order extra supplies for people's projects that weren't needed, and then take them to use in their other work. Judge ruled my parents didn't have to pay for the materials not used in our house, but that the builder was not obligated to finish the project beyond making sure what was done was up to code. Okay. So this is not the first time this has happened. I mean, it is to them, but it's not the first time this has happened in general. This, a lot of times, construction workers, they have really transferable skills, and so they are often moonlighting and working on other jobs over and above their 9-to-5 job. They have skills that are in demand, especially if somebody needs smaller things that they can take on after work, like a fence built or a deck built or something that is not outside of the normal scope of work for a carpenter. And it happens all the time, and there's nothing wrong with it. People making extra cash, it's great, it's good. The problem is when you're taking job materials from one job or ordering materials for that are taken from one job and using them on another. That is, for lack of a better word, that is theft. You're taking something from one person and using it for your own gain, and probably charging the next client for those materials. That's called double charging. Sometimes you definitely see it in excavation, where if the material is really good from one job site and the excavator is taking material from one job site, they may charge that client to take the material from their job site, charge them, the client one, I'll call them, trucking to truck it away and dump it and come back and do that whole dance. And then you may see, but if the material from client one's job site is good, is structural fill, and is needed on another job site, they'll charge client two where that material is going, and they'll charge them to go and get it and bring it to client two's house or job site. So what they're doing is they're basically double charging on they're charging two different clients for the same project, for the same product, same trucking. So there's trucking time for client one is going and dumping, and then client two is going to get the materials and bringing it back. So that does happen, unfortunately, and it's really dishonest, and it's theft. There's no two ways about it. So the bad part here is that now the clients, in this case, don't have anybody to finish the project. They aren't out any money at this point, it looks like, which is good. And it's good for them for noticing this and not just blindly paying invoices without looking. So that's great. Now, so that's good. And it sounds like the clients in this case have done a lot of things correctly. And it's just a bummer that the guy that he thought he knew, was dishonest, and his crew members were dishonest. It sounds like either the contractor himself didn't know or did know and turned a blind eye to what his workers were doing. So builder, the story doesn't end here. So now we know the judge ruled my parents didn't have to pay for the materials not used in our house, but that the builder was not obligated to finish the project beyond making sure what was done was up to code. Building inspector came in and made a list of what needed fixing. A couple weeks later, he calls back and says everything is magically up to code. The builder paid him off, so my parents were left with about 1,800 square feet of unfinished house with really shoddy work and no money left to finish it. The house is still unfinished 15 years later. The builder eventually went bankrupt from multiple lawsuits. Shocking. Somehow he reopened with a smaller crew. This is not that uncommon, unfortunately. So let's break this down a little bit. Building inspector came in and made a list of what needed fixing. A couple weeks later, he calls back and said everything is magically up to code. So it says here builder paid him off. So my parents, I mean, that's a really unfortunate situation. Obviously, I don't know what went on or what happened. That's just a bad situation. I mean, I'm not going to say that it's never happened. I've never heard of it happening. Like builders actually paying, essentially bribing building inspectors. But it sounds like this guy was not the most scrupulous builder, so that very well may have been the case. The curious part to me, okay, we've got really 1,800 square feet of unfinished house with really shoddy work and no money left to finish it. I wonder why, if you only got to framing stage, which by all accounts is maybe halfway through your project from a financial perspective, my only thought is why don't they have money left to fix it? If it sounds like, I mean, we don't hear anything about budget overages. We do hear that they had to pay for what they took or what they stole, essentially. So if that's the case, then in theory, by the information that we're given here, the client isn't out that much money. They've been reimbursed for the materials that weren't used in the house. But based on the information here, I'm curious as to why they don't have any money left to finish the project. That's curious to me, because if they had appropriately allocated, say, $200,000, let's say, hypothetically, and they get halfway through the project and they've been reimbursed for what they lost, financially they should have $100,000 left to finish the project. So I don't quite know why they wouldn't have any money left to finish it. The house is still unfinished 15 years later. That sucks. Hopefully, they're able to get somebody in there to do something about it. 15 years is a long time to have an addition that is sitting there, and not great, because it's probably not fully waterproofed, and so you start getting into issues with structural failure and structural issues and rot, and I mean, I'm assuming it's still open and not closed up, so that at least the wood or the material would be allowed to dry seasonally. But the builder eventually went bankrupt from multiple lawsuits, somehow reopened with a smaller crew. That's not unusual. Oftentimes builders will put all of their assets into their wife's name, or it's just a numbered company that they can dissolve very, very quickly and reopen and just reassert their assets, all their tools, the trucks, everything under a new name, and just start again. And that's for lack of a better word, the criminal part about construction and building is that it's such an in-demand industry that you can restart it quite quickly. Your skills don't go away. And the only people that lose here are the clients. And this contains a lot of the reasons why I do at Albatross Academy what I do in terms of educating homeowners and getting people, helping people navigate this stuff, is that and trying to get people into good positions so that they don't have to go through this stuff. And also because this stuff does happen and you really want to try to obviously, I mean, this probably ruined their lives, like to a degree, like from a financial perspective, it very well could have. And it sounds like it if they haven't finished the project. And a lot of times also it just takes the stuffing out of you. It kind of knocks you down a few pegs when you get, I mean, a lot of this industry is trust based, and when you put your trust in somebody and they let you down, it's not a great feeling. You don't really feel like going through that again. It's like somebody, you're young in relationships, or they break your heart, and it takes a lot of guts and a lot of gumption to, as they say, get right back on the horse. And a lot of times people, they have a bad experience like this and they just don't want to do it anymore. And finishing the project seems like a monumental task now. You have to find somebody else that's hopefully not going to screw you like this person did. And you got to try to gather yourself and your money. So yeah, it's tough. It's really tough. So that's a tough one because I think a lot of the client did a lot of things correctly. Okay, the next one here. Uh, this was something the previous people's contractor did, but our plumber found it. We noticed signs of a leak in the wall behind our bed, which is against the wall where the washer and dryer are. So we call a plumber and they try to snake it, but there's something there they can't get through. It actually broke their snake and they had to work through to get it back out. So I'll maybe explain what this is. A plumbing snake is a long, usually metal or aluminum, maybe sometimes steel. It's like an auger. It's got a threaded end on it, on the end of it. Sometimes they're hand. I mean, I have like a hand snake. Sometimes they're mechanical, where they're fed through and they're real kind of aggressive, and they can chew up. They have like a little. They can spin real fast, and they can chew up things that are in the way. That you most often see them in sewer lines if you get backup sewer connection. Sometimes you can see them, smaller ones, in sink drains, but that's not that common. Usually it is something to do with the sewer line outside of your home. And so that's what a plumbing snake is. And so for something to actually break a snake means there's like a rock or something going on in there. So they recommend a different company that has a camera and all that. So what they do is they send a camera down the sewer line. And they can see blockages, and they can see, sometimes it's tree roots, usually in a 4-inch sewer line, usually like tree roots or something like that, so they can see what it is. They need to bring in an extra special camera with a hand wand so they can see exactly where the black block is and possibly dig it up. So sometimes that's what happens. If you have a blockage, you can get the exact linear footage of the blockage, and you can pinpoint where it is outside the building. If you say you run like 47 feet of snake, and that's when you hit the blockage, you can basically pace that out or measure that out based on where your sewer line is, and get a sense of probably within 5 or 6 feet of where that blockage is outside the home, because that's mostly often where they are. Sometimes pipes get squished, or they get collapsed, or there's rocks or tree roots that have slowly worked their way and squished the pipe. At this point, they think maybe someone got some quickcrete or gravel or something in there during renovations. Ooh, that would be bad. So the blockage is underneath our bedroom, so it's not outside the house. It's inside the house, so it's not very far. It might be like 6 or 10 feet. And this is a house on a slab, so out comes the jackhammer. Bummer. That's too bad. What he finds is, after excavation, the other line is the waste line from the master bathroom. So you guys can't see the photo, but the plumber just did not connect pipes. They one pipe ends and into what should be a Y. A Y is a connection point where two pipes are connected into one. And what should be a Y is just not connected. Actually, I might be able to even show you here. This is a bit wild, but right there. Uh, Two pipes not connected at all. So that's probably why uh, things aren't going very well. Yikes. I mean, that is. I'm trying to figure out what happened there. Like maybe the plumber. But I mean, if you're connecting one pipe, you must see the other pipe there. So I don't know why. I mean, maybe he thought it would just by osmosis just leach from one pipe into the next. That's pretty rough. Another person said the same thing just almost happened to me at a house I'm renovating. Basement had rough in for bathroom, toilet, and sink. I decided I wanted to add a shower where the toilet plumbing was. Broke up the floor only to find the toilet plumbing made a 90-degree turn in the concrete and just ended. Not connected to a waistline and not even capped. If I would have just put a toilet on there, I would have been pooping straight into the ground. Wow. My parents lived with a backed up pipe in the slab for like 10 years that had eaten a fair number of pipe snakes. Finally, they had it jackhammered up, and the pipe had been crushed at some point during the slab pour. So if there's anything larger than a pea that went down the drain, it got stuck at that spot. That's such a bummer. Man, I mean, I don't even have an excuse. Sometimes I'd like to try to figure out what happened. It's a bit of a puzzle. I don't, when some people bring me their renovation stories, I try to figure out what happened sometimes and try to piece things using the logic of a, builder or construction. And you're like, what happened here? Like, why? I don't get this. I mean, they're just not connecting pipes. Crushing a plumbing pipe is not easy, especially if it's PVC, like white pipe. I've seen a dump truck drive over top of white 4-inch PVC, and it almost springs. It will compress, and then it'll almost spring back to its full shape. It's a remarkable product. I don't get it. Like ABS will just crush, but PVC it rebounds pretty quickly. That's wild. Yikes. One person says, I've learned the hard way about giving anyone money up front. Luckily, it was relatively minor. We ended up having to hire someone else to finish our kitchen cabinets in the end after a guy walked off the job from Home Depot's delays on cabinets. Yeah. That's interesting. So it sounds like they got the cabinets from Home Depot, but they had an installer that was going to install them. And this is not uncommon, but it sounds like they might have just paid this guy a deposit because it sounds like he didn't do any work. The cabinets never got there in time. So it sounds like they had paid a deposit. I'm really on the fence about deposits. I don't love them, but I also understand them from a worker's perspective. If you're an honest worker, getting a deposit is good because it holds a spot for people, for clients. I definitely understand. It should not be much. It should definitely not be much. Just because, especially if there's no trust relationship there, this is an industry of trust, and I mean we allow access to like complete strangers into our homes. When I first got into this industry, I always thought like this is so strange. you have maybe there's a renovation or something you're renovating, like a section, or there's a kitchen, and we just like freely give access to all these people, these strangers. We don't, lock the door. We're gone during the day or something, and these guys are working here. They have full access to like our entire home. And I can't think of another situation that would be true. I mean, a lot of a lot of times it's like, when would you do that with another? Like, you wouldn't say to like your accountant, like, yeah, just come over and like work in my house, come check it out, go through my underpants or something. Like, I don't know. It's but in the construction industry, we do it all the time. We're like, yeah, come on in. We just trust that they are good and upstanding, morally decent people that aren't going to steal from us. And of course, it happens sometimes. But it sounds like this person gave him a little money up front, a deposit, and it was relatively minor. We ended up having to hire someone else to finish our cabinets in the end after a guy walked off the job. Home Depot delays on cabinets. So yeah, I mean, sometimes we just get delays on cabinets. Now, I don't know. All right. This is a longer one. Let's hired a guy to rip up my old carpet and lay laminate down in 3 bedrooms, a hallway, and the living room. So not an insignificant area. 3 bedrooms, hallway, and a living room is, pretty substantial. I contacted him on a Friday, and we met at my new house that evening so he could see the job. He said, no problem at all. Quick 2-day job. He wants 40% up front. That's tough. What we don't know at this point, is who's buying the material. I always recommend that if you're getting, I mean, you can get, if you're just working, if there's an established store, like say you go to a a carpet store, or you go to a hardwood store. So how this works is, generally speaking, if you buy a product and you say you need an installer, they have independent installers that they reach out to, and they pay a certain wage to. And so they say, I mean, usually these flooring stores don't have their own in-house installers that they pay a salary to. It's usually subcontractors that they'll get from around that they know and they have contact with. And they say, we'll pay you X amount of dollars an hour and to come and do the install for us. It's maybe it's more common than I think, but it's, in my experience, it's not that common unless it's a really big flooring store to have somebody working on their stuff completely exclusively. So the reason I don't I always, in this case, if you're getting a supply and install price from an independent flooring person, aka not a flooring store, a brick and mortar store, then I really don't like the deposit mechanism. And if you are going to do a deposit, it's got to be like 10%. 40% up front is way, way, way too much. They'll say, and here's why I don't like that much. They'll say, the contractor will say, the flooring contractor will say, I got to go buy the materials. Now, this is a few little red flags, and I talk a lot about this in my other YouTube videos. This is a bit of a red flag for me. If a contractor, especially for something like flooring, which by all accounts, it might be like a few $1,000s. It might be like $8,000 or something max. Like, I mean, let me do some quick math here. But if you are doing 3 bedrooms, a hallway, and a living room, let's just go ahead and say that the living room might be at the most 250 square feet. Bedrooms, let's say they're big. Let's say they're 200 square feet. That's pretty big. Plus 200 plus 200. So 3 bedrooms. Let's say a hallway is 4 feet wide by 20 feet long. That is 4 by 20. That's 80. Oops. Plus 80. So we've got all told, we've got let's call it 930 square feet. Let's say you're getting 1,000 square feet of material. So 1,000. Yeah, I mean, let's say it's $8 a square foot material. Hypothetically, let's say it's 10,000 square feet. So that's $10,000 investment. If your contractor cannot float a $10,000 investment and they're experienced, that tells me that they don't run the business very well if they cannot cash flow a $10,000 cost of materials. So here's what I don't like about that. If they say, well, it's for materials, you say, you buy the materials. I'm paying you a supply and install price. I'm paying you a total price for this. I don't want to have to pay 40%. Like you can handle this. I'll give you 10% just to hold your spot and to show you that I'm serious. But 10%, I mean, that's enough. Hopefully, if they walk away from it, you're fine. You're still okay. 40% is too much. Now, if say it's a flooring brick and mortar store and they want 40%, and they say, well, that's just our policy, and you really like the flooring and they've been great to deal with otherwise, then maybe, yeah, okay, because they're not going anywhere. You can go back into the store and say, I mean, they're not going to walk away with your money. They're not going to stop answering their phone, which I haven't read this, but I suspect that's where we're going. So he wants 40% up front. I didn't know any better, so I write him a check, and it's immediately cashed. Sunday night around 11 p.m., so this is Friday. We meet on Friday night. Sunday night at 11 p.m., I get a text from his wife saying there was a death in the family and Brandon won't be coming Monday anymore. In reality, she must have forgotten she added me on Facebook, and I could see they took a trip to Fort Lauderdale with my cashed check. So now we're getting into it. That's kind of they're just dumb. If you're gonna do that stuff, like, why would you add a client on Facebook? And B, why would you post anything? Like, if you're doing shady stuff like that, like, why would you post that stuff on Facebook? I don't get it. So we're now into it. So I wait on Tuesday morning for him to show up. He was supposed to show up at 8. Finally got a hold of him at 10. He said his buddy was sick and he's got other jobs to do, but he'll definitely be there tomorrow. And now we get into this gruesome cycle of playing cat and mouse and excuses and trying to placate you by saying that he's going to be there tomorrow. And we all know how this, I think, ends. On Wednesday, I had internet and cable being installed, so I came home at lunch to be there for that. I walk in to find a stranger chilling on my couch, texting with maybe 3 feet of carpet ripped up. Apparently, this is Brandon's buddy who spent the majority of the 4-hour stretch I was home chain smoking on my front porch. I've got a video about that. If you're a contractor, one of the things that drives clients nuts is smoking on their site. If you're going to go smoke ciggies, which is fine, no judgment, don't do it on the job site. Like, just literally go walk off the site to go and do it. If you smoke on someone's house, people find that, especially if they don't smoke, they find that super, super disrespectful. So don't do that. Brandon finally shows up at 5 p.m. to work. He kicks us out of the house, so my husband, 14-month-old, and I have to drive around. Shows up at 5 p.m. to work. That's a problem. I glossed over that. If someone shows up at my house at 5 p.m. to work, now, here I get, they're in between a rock and a hard place, the client is at this point, because what they're feeling is, I just want this done. I just want this to be over. This is not going great. it's hard to get the person here, and now they finally show up at 5 p.m. no less. And I don't know what to do because I want them here. I want him to do the work, but they showed up at a really bad time. 5 p.m. on a Wednesday is not a great time to show up to do work. That's when people are home. That's when you should be home. So getting somebody at 5 p.m., yeah. Yeah. So they end up leaving the house. We gave him 2 hours and decided we wanted to go home. In that time, they pulled up one room of carpet, and that was it. Carpet is not hard to pull up, FYI. It's got cleats around the outside edges of the room that hold the edges down, and otherwise it is not secured unless it's like somehow glued to the subfloor or something. So 2 hours to pull up one room of carpet is not a lot. You should have been able to do the whole thing in that time. Thursday rolls around, so this is the next day, and our neighbor texts us. They actually showed up on time and appear to be working. Great. Now we're getting somewhere. I was so excited to come home to a mostly finished house. I pulled up at 5 p.m., and they had 1/4 of the living room done. That's it. They hadn't even pulled all the carpet yet. He tells me the flooring I picked out sucks, and it's too hard to work with. Despite there being 2 completely empty rooms, they piled all the baseboards with nails sticking out next to my son's crib in his bedroom. Sorry, that I shouldn't laugh. That would be horrifying. Yeah, I mean, everything about this just screams kind of, well, losers. Like, they don't obviously have any consideration for the client. There's a sense of entitlement that some contractors get because they have a skill that other people don't. That drives me bananas. And it's wild. So for them to do like a quarter, so it sounds like they didn't pull all the carpet, but they started laying the flooring. Unless you are warranting the product, which I suspect he wasn't, then whether or not the product sucks, it doesn't matter. It's too hard to work with. Cry me a river. If you're a specialty, if you're a flooring installer, then you'll deal. At this point, I'm furious, but kind of over a barrel because I need this done. This is super, super, super common. And this is where clients get into these really sticky situations because they need, like we said earlier, they need the work done. They've been really difficult to deal with. And so now you get into this is so, so common. You get into this spot where they're there and you just need them to finish. But now we've got some problems with that. And now we've got these issues that we don't seem to be able to solve in that they're bitching about the flooring sucks. They're hard to get there. But for clients, the best case scenario is them just finishing the work. The worst case scenario is them leaving and you have to find someone else to finish someone else's work. And that ends up costing more money because it shouldn't, but it does. Because the person who's coming in to fix the work hates it. There's lots of things that tradespeople hate. Number one is having to finish someone else's work. Because oftentimes the way that you start, especially with flooring, the way you lay flooring, is your first row is essential. It's critical to the success of the rest of the row. If you put your first row in and it's not square or something's funky about it and it's not perfectly aligned to the walls in the room or the hallway, that first row is absolutely critical. It essentially lays out your entire job. So if somebody's laid a first row of flooring and you have to come back and to try to they're going to want to take it all out and redo it all because nobody wants to actually finish someone else's work. So definitely over a barrel because they paid some money. They need it done. They're there, and they don't want the upheaval of having to find somebody else. But now don't forget they've got a 14-month-old baby, and they're in a spot of upheaval, and that's where a lot of construction clients get into a really sticky spot because they're in this state of upheaval. Their life is disrupted. Their routines are disrupted. Everything is different. And now you've got this thing that isn't going well also. And so you're in this state of like upheaval, and you hate it, and you don't know what to do. And now there's this possibility that things may not go as according to plan. So I'm over a barrel because I need this done. Then his wife texted me the next morning and said he had the flu and he can't come in. So I fired him on the spot. They left this huge pile of debris in our driveway and refused to clean it up until I filed a complaint with the Indiana Attorney General. Okay. We had to hire Lowe's to redo the work. They said those guys had no idea what they're doing and didn't leave any room on the edges for expansion. They had to throw away all the laminate that those idiots had put down, about 6 boxes worth. Yeah, that's what I thought was going to happen, right? Because nobody wants to come in and finish anybody else's work. That was the most expensive mistake we ever made. It does sound like the laminate was pretty cheap. Sorry, I'm not victim shaming here, but if you have to throw away it all, I don't know why you couldn't just, unless it's glue down or something. If it's floating, then you just pick it up. I mean, if it's nailed down, then nail down, you're going to be chipping it up, and glue down, you're going to be chipping it up. So it must have been one of those two. Anyways, that was the most expensive mistake we ever made. A lot of things in here about, hiring the right people is so critical, because there's, as I mentioned earlier, there's an element of trust here that we just can't get away from. Like, you cannot make people, and that's why people get micromanaged, because that's why trades get micromanaged, because clients get so worried about how their project is going, and can I trust this person? Are they going to take off with my money? Are they going to do a terrible job? There's so many unknowns for clients, and so hiring the right people is so critical. That's one of the reasons why I am making currently the Hire the Right Builder course for Albatross Academy, because it's such a huge part of project success. And that's what we're really all after. I mean, nobody minds paying money for a job that's well done, but there's so much fear and hesitation around what's going to happen. Who are they going to screw me? Are they going to run off with all my money? Are they going to do a terrible job? Are they going to leave, baseboard with nails sticking out next to my kid's crib? So, yeah, I mean, that's why I'm doing this. That's why I'm doing like this overall, is just because this kind of stuff, it breaks my heart a little bit to hear people. I mean, in this case, I would really want to know how they found these people. Because usually, I mean, people like this generally don't have a great online presence, and so they must have found them, through someone else. And usually if you find someone through someone else, they've given a decent recommendation. So it's too bad. So that's all the time we have for today. I'll start on time next Wednesday at 10 p.m. Pacific. I'll start on time now that I figured this whole live streaming thing out, and we'll go through a few more stories and see if we can learn some more stuff. So we're watching retrospectively. Well, if you're watching in the future, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. Don't forget, if you want more resources, come check it out at albatrossacademy.ca. And of course, subscribe on YouTube and follow Instagram, Facebook also. Just come drop me a line, say hello, and ask me any questions that you like. That's what this live Q&A is for. And it's just for people to come and drop some questions in here. So if you want to, if you feel like doing that, then by all means, love to see you here. Thanks for watching.